Georgia players, we can't live without. We don't want to live without. Nobody should ever have to live without. That's what we're talking about on today's episode. Who are the Georgia Bulldogs, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, that Georgia can least afford to do without for a game, a stretch of games, a season? Who are the players that are, dare I say, irreplaceable on the offensive side of the ball? That's what we're talking about today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Daniel. I am Clint. And together we talk about fan talk, Daniel.
We talk like fan. Been a while since we said fan talk on the pod, but
I need people to understand the hope of this podcast, the goal, the explicit purpose. It's to talk to fans like fans because, wait just a moment.
Hold on.
We are fans.
We are fans. That's what we are.
Thing. So
found our names. I got it.
Hey, I was just going to say,
watching on YouTube.
If y'all can't figure out Daniel's facial expression yet, he was searching. That was a real struggle, just all over the place. There we are. Glad you were here. If you're over on the audio side, get over to YouTube side, subscribe over there. And if you're on the YouTube side watching our beautiful faces, get on over to the audio side and subscribe there. Download helps your boys out.
Do you see what he's saying? He's saying subscribe everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's what we need. That's what we want.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the three most irreplaceable players for Georgia. Daniel.
On offense.
Yes, on offense. Thank you. I apologize. We're going to do defense tomorrow, so we'll do that. And loyal third segment listeners, a little something for you.
A little something?
Third segment.
Oh, boy. You love that.
For you.
Okay.
So let's start, Daniel. We're gonna rank these.
Yes, we are. Number one, most irreplaceable. The premise of this is like, you're a baseball fan, Clint.
Yes, I am.
Okay. In baseball, they love the advanced statistics. And I was thinking to myself the other day about the metric WAR. Are you familiar? It's wins above replacement is what it stands for.
What is it good for, though, Daniel?
It's actually pretty decent statistic at measuring what is what's up with a particular player. Now, it would be difficult to do.
Yeah.
I was thinking, could we create a WAR for college football players? Now,
it'd be hard.
It'd be very difficult to do because baseball teams, I'm not sure if you know, play 162 games in a season, and the very best players in all of baseball have a WAR of something like 6-7 games, meaning that single player, based on all of these statistical whatevers, we'll have to get Dawgs stats on here to do the math for us. We got to get the Leatherman, call them at the same place. What if the Leatherman and Dawgs stats were to be in the same room with each other at some point? At some point, we do a podcast. You and I just fade into the background.
Let me stop you there. Okay. Have you seen them in the same room as each other?
Oh, maybe they're the same. Ooh, I like where your head's at. So if you tried to extrapolate out for a college football season, if the very best players are only good for 6 or 7 wins in a 162 game sample size, that would mean the very best college football players, if you were to replace them with an average player, which players would have the biggest detriment to the team? So we're not saying you take them out and Georgia doesn't have a quarterback, for example. We're not even saying this is an important thing to note. If we're going to go based on WAR, we're not saying you lose them and the next person on the depth chart has to step in.
No, we're just saying
what we're saying is
player.
They don't play, and instead of the next person on the depth chart, you replace that player with a quote-unquote average college football player.
You find just the mean right there and plug them in.
The Jimmy and Joe that's playing at a Toledo, at a Florida, at a lesser college football program.
He's wrong, by the way.
So let's start with most irreplaceable. In other words, if we were forced to not have this guy and replace him with just an average college football player, quote unquote average college football player, who would have the single biggest detriment to Georgia's overall team performance on offense? I'm going to let you have the first one, Clint.
This is the simplest thing in the world to me. I'm going to just go down basically with what Georgia does on the offensive side of the ball and how Georgia has found success the last number of years on the offensive side of the ball. It's a pretty simple metric. Mm-hmm. So let me break this down for you. Okay. Todd Monken and Mike Bobo, same mind, by the way. Mind meld has happened.
Mind meld. We're talking about it's not even a beautiful mind anymore. They literally are just one human head.
It's just one human head.
Yep.
Balanced attack. Passing to set up the run, running to set up the pass. It is not an air raid. It is not heavy. It is somebody who can both protect in the pass game and maul in the run game.
What if we told you that the same player could be both things?
What if I were to tell you that Amarius Mims could be both of those things, Daniel?
This is the number one for you.
Number
one.
Because
he's irreplaceable.
He's the number one. Here's why. I would like to say, as many people, what about quarterback? Quarterback is so unsettled. What are we going to do? We have proven.
League average? Is that what you said? Did you say league average?
We fine.
Okay. Well, we take league average. We turn him into the greatest college football player
ever
in the history of mankind.
Okay, so there's that. You want to talk about running backs? Running backs, we have just dealt with injuries and we've seen them come through. You want to talk about wide receivers? We've had them come in, we've had them come out. On the offensive side of the ball, it has to be tackle Amarius Mims. That is my number one, Daniel.
Yeah, I don't hate this, and that's the number one for us. It as you said, makes such an impact in so many areas of the game, and it's not the flashiest thing in the world. It's not it's not the most obvious thing in the world until your offensive line is average.
There it is.
And when your offensive line is average, you're average. Now, check back because we might actually have another offensive lineman on this list later. But for right now,
I will.
We start with Amarius Mims at position number one, and I absolutely love it. So we're going to go second most irreplaceable in the next segment. We'll go third most irreplaceable on the offensive side of the ball in the third segment for the loyal third segment listeners. But first, Clint is going to talk to you about something exciting.
Built Bar, Daniel. That's what's exciting. I love
a Built Bar.
It's Built Bar.
Who doesn't love a Built Bar?
Erroneous, incorrect, and incompetent people, Daniel, if I could be.
Just erroneous people.
Erroneous people. They go into that vapid hole and they don't
get sucked right in.
They don't come out. Built Bar, tastiest protein bar on planet Earth. They are literally protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. We don't just say that because we were told to say that. We have tasted them and we can tell you.
We've also tasted candy bars.
And I could tell you that Built Bar candy bar, same thing. Venn diagram, just one big taste circle.
Correct. If we were doing most irreplaceable foods, you would not say candy bar because you could just replace it with a Built Bar, be healthier, and taste just as good.
Thank you, Daniel. Way to just seamlessly work that in.
Mind
there.
meld.
Over there.
We are now one brain.
Built Bar is the tastiest protein bar, high in protein, high in fiber, low in sugar. Dietary approved as well as on the go meal replacement. Built.com and get 15% off your entire order with Locked On. That's 15% off your entire order. Built.com. Get over there right now.
All right, we're going position number two. Second most irreplaceable player on the Georgia offense. Now, I noticed that you were defending against the hypothetical commenter, as we are prone to do on this podcast. We have gotten enough comments that we have learned to anticipate them. I noticed that you were defending yourself against the hypothetical commenter, and you said, well, what about quarterback, Clint? What about running back, Clint? What about wide receiver, Clint? And then you stopped because many of the hypothetical commenters and I know we're not speaking about any of those position groups. In fact, they were speaking of one tight end.
There it is.
who is the best player in all of college football and thereby must be fairly irreplaceable on the Georgia roster. Now, if this were a question of we replace Brock Bowers with the next guy on the depth chart, that would be one thing, and that would be a blow to Georgia. It would be a blow to Georgia because Brock Bowers cannot be rivaled.
But who we replacing him with?
But it wouldn't be that big of a blow because the next guys in line are quite good at playing football. We like them a lot. But if you have to tell me that we have to take Brock Bowers, another figure who is integral in the run game, you talk about balanced attack, and absolutely crucial, the number one option in the passing game. You're talking about a new quarterback under center. You're talking about the security blanket of security blankets. The man is literally open from the time he walks into the athletic department complex until he scores the requisite amount of touchdowns. Brock Bowers is always open. He is a mismatch for everyone that he runs up against, and we're going to have to replace him with an average player at tight end. That throws off the whole dynamic of this Georgia offense.
Yes, it does.
I think Brock Bowers probably leads this team in WAR if we're ranking it the way that a Major League Baseball club would. And he's the second most irreplaceable person on this roster. And I think the numbers, the analytics, and just the eyeball test, it all speaks for itself, Clint.
I mean, right now, he's a top 5 pick. Right now, today.
Should be, at least. We've seen the NFL draft, Clint. You don't know what's going to happen out there. You don't know what people are going to do. Kenny
hold on.
McIntosh went in the 7th round.
Now, remind me, he was like just kind of every other running back in the SEC where he didn't have too much rushing nor receiving yards. Or was he one of 3 to amass stats that he did last year in both the most balanced attack running back position, catching and rushing that we've seen out of Georgia?
It's interesting because that's exactly who he was. And also, he's a guy that's got dynamic weapons in certain aspects of the game, particularly catching the ball out of the backfield. Also great in the pass protection. Anyway, it's not a Kenny McIntosh podcast. I was on the Locked On Seahawks podcast talking about Kenny Mac. All I'm trying to say is the NFL draft is the Wild West, Clint. But Brock Bowers is one of the best players in college football and should be one of the first players taken in the NFL draft.
That's exactly right. And if you look at the numbers, if you look at everything, he's going to go down as the best tight end ever at UGA because he already is, and he's going to have all them records to go with it as well. He's already Mount Rushmore.
Three
national
championships in his 3 years at Georgia.
That's exactly right. We're going to come back after this. He is our number 2, but we have number 3 yet to go. The most irreplaceable player on the offensive line. Loyal third segment. Come on back, 199, right after this. Okay, Daniel, we got one more to go. It is by the way, your name is Daniel. I want the commenters to understand you're Daniel. I'm Clint.
Daniel. He's
okay.
Clint.
We like names.
We don't look alike. We don't sound alike. We do think weirdly alike, but please don't hold us accountable for that.
No, please don't. We need to get to our third. And by the way, 199, thanks for being here. Appreciate
loyal third segment listeners, the 199. You guys are fantastic. There's the graphic if you're watching on Twitter. Hey, watching on YouTube, I should say.
You got that.
Follow us on Twitter at Dawgs Podcast. Also, if you're watching this show and you're a dad,
thank you, Daniel. This is the special little announcement. If you are a dad and you happen to enjoy a certain barrel,
people listening on audio right now are saying to themselves, "What the heck is he
beverage.
talking about?" Yeah. Your boys have a new show. It's called The Dad Pod, and it's a show for dads. We talk about all manner of nonsense. This week we're talking about whiskey, and so, I think it's worth a listen. So go over there on the YouTubes, the Dad Pod guys on Twitter. You can follow us there. youtube.com/thedadpodguys. Check out that show. Let's get to the third most irreplaceable person on Georgia's offense. And Amarius Mims came in at number 1, but right next door, actually 2 doors down.
2 doors down. Yeah, thank you.
You get a guy I like to call Cedric Van Pran, and
SVP.
can
is
we
him.
talk about the fact, because it's not been talked about enough, it sort of was in a off-season news blitz, like this off-season. I'm not sure if you've been a Georgia Bulldog fan for very long. You boys have been asked to do a lot of guest spots on a lot of shows because, 1, the Georgia Bulldogs are the defending back-to-back national champions, and 2, there's been a lot of news out of the program this offseason. Now, a lot of it surrounding the tragedy that happened in January that we are in no way going to rehash. But one of the things I think that was lost in a lot of that offseason news is the decision of Cedric Van Pran to say no to the NFL, pass to the NFL, see you later to the NFL, and decide to run it back yet again. Hashtag even more unfinished business, Clint.
This guy, the greediest
for this man.
Greediest man I know, Daniel.
This man said, I'm not going out with 2. Why would I do that when I could have 3?
Why?
Why would I do that? Cedric Van Pran's decision to come back, I think, was one of the biggest things that happened to the Georgia Bulldogs this offseason.
Now, Daniel, we could talk about war and playing, and he is up there top 3 if in this hypothetical game, skill-wise. But if I was to tell you that outside of skill and position, if I just wanted one presence on the
one human person in the locker room on the offensive side of the ball,
SVP,
it would by a mile.
He would be the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth by a mile. This man, all accounts and all stories have him being the abject glue relationally, accountability, responsibility, smarts, intelligence, and just to boot, he's incredible at his job.
He knows how to play winning football at a level that many only dream of. Cedric Van Pran coming back is a massive boost for the offensive line. It's a massive boost for the guards that will be lined up next to him. You look at a guy like Tate Ratledge, whose career has been up and down with some injuries in the course of it. Not green per se, but is going to benefit greatly from the experience of lining up next to a guy like SVP. But it's not the guys next to him that he's going to be helping out the most, Clint. It's the guy right behind him that's going to be benefiting the most from this continuity, because this is a guy that's had back-to-back seasons of working with national championship quarterback Stetson Bennett. He knows what that relationship needs to look like, and he knows how to steer Carson Beck into the right situations for him.
Now, wait a second. The mind meld Todd Monken and Mike Bobo means that run fits, pass protection, pass scheme, all same language, all same stuff for an offensive line that is going to face some roster turnover on the starting sides.
Sure.
And the man who's in charge of making those calls pre-snap,
all that continuity,
all the same for him as well.
Yeah, you love that.
You love that.
You absolutely love that. The relationship, quarterback-center relationship, is a lot more than just handling the snap and making sure it's not fumbled and all sorts of things like that. And so you love to see that. SVP coming back is huge for this offense. Now, listen, we didn't even get into some really dynamic playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Just to be clear, 2 years ago was a defensive team. Last year, the defense was also exemplary, but we were most excited about the offense from last year's team. And listen, the offense did not disappoint us.
No.
It was absolutely sensational. This year's team, I almost don't even know. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
oh, I do.
Big uncertainty at quarterback, obviously,
Sure.
but I almost don't even know which I'm more excited about, the offensive or defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of irreplaceable guys on this unit, and spoiler alert, come back tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of irreplaceable guys on the defensive side of the ball too. How are we going to narrow it down to 3? You will have to come back and find out. For Clint, I am Daniel. This has been the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. Check out the merch, $199, and check out the Dad Pod. Subscribe on the YouTube to the Dad Pod, and we will see you guys to talk about defense irreplaceable players tomorrow. See ya.